Hello everyone, this is part 13 of my Hocus Pocus Sanderson Sister dollhouse. This is that little battery pack that goes to the chimney and this little chandelier, and I just had it sitting here, and I thought later I would figure out a way to put a piece of furniture in front of this or something just to hide that, but instead of sitting something in front of it, I thought I would just do a little built-in cabinet area. So I've just put a little wall up here, and then I've cut another little wall to go on this side, and I'll just glue that in place. And then I've cut out a little door shape to just go on the front, and I'll put hinges on that, and it can open up and it can just hide that battery pack. And of course I'll paint this to look like wood and put some little hinges and a little handle over here, and it can just look like a built-in cabinet. This is that first little chandelier that I'd built. This is the one that's actually got the lights in it, but I went through here and I added a few more candles, just using the straw and gluing some wax down here with just some hot glue, just to match these others. And then I liked this so much that I built another one right over here, but this one it don't have any kind of lights in it. It's just for looks mainly, but I've put several of those little straw candles around here, and then I can paint this one to just match the other one. It does hang down a little bit longer, but it'll be painted to look the same. So I just wanted to show that before I actually got it painted and finished. It's just made the same way as the other one where I showed in an earlier video. And this one's just got a few more candles. And I even dripped some of the glue without a candle, so it just looks like the candles completely melted away. I just thought that would add an extra little detail. Alright, this is the door that's on the side of the house. This is just that piece of foam board that got cut out way back when I was building the house. And I just went in here and scratched in some lines, like I did on the walls to look like wood. And then these strips that are making this little Z shape is just little strips of poster board that I've cut to give it some detail. And I've done the same thing on the inside. And the handle is poster board. I'll show you how these are made, and these little hinges. These are just made out of a piece of black fabric and two little pieces of poster board. So I'll make those so you can see how I did those. But I just wanted to show this door. I'm going to try to show all three. There's 3 doors, so I'm going to try to show all 3 of those. Alright, so after I got the windows done, I didn't really love them. I just felt like it needed some kind of a trim to kind of finish it out. So I cut these little strips of these little frames out of that thin cardboard and just placed them inside. Just measure out your window and cut a little frame out, and that just really helped make that look finished. And of course I painted those black before I glued them on, and I've done that to every window. And this one is actually for the very last one on the side towards the back. So I'll get this one painted and glued in place, and then all my windows are finished. And I don't know if I'm going to keep them black or paint them brown to look like wood. I'll just have to figure out, kind of look at the pictures of the real house, see if I can figure out if it's black, like these details inside here, or if it should be brown. But these little details inside here are actually, I don't know if you can see them, I think it shows. These are toothpicks inside the glass. And I've got, on this window, I have the plastic on the inside and a piece on the outside, just so them little toothpicks look like they're actually more a part of the window. So that's what those are. And I just thought this little trim really helped finish that out. Now those little toothpicks that are going across, I just stuck them in there you know, the house being foam, it was easy to just stick those inside there. I just stuck them more towards this side and then pulled it back to where it met and then glued them in place. And the long one going up in the vertical is actually just a little thin strip of poster board. And of course, nothing on the outside has been painted. It's final color, so don't, you know, pay any attention to this messy paint job, because painting the house is probably going to be the very last thing. I think I even want to do the shingles and paint the shingles before I paint the side of the house, because just looking at it, I think it'll be easier to do it that way. Alright, so here is another door to show you. This is the little closet door, and it's the same. It's that same little piece of foam board that got cut out of this when I was making these steps, and then I took that rectangle piece and I actually cut it into strips so that this one is actually looks more like individual little boards. It's been nailed together, and then I've just secured it a little bit, strengthened it with little piece of cardboard back here, and then made a little cardboard piece out here. And this these hinges and this handle is made the same as that other door that I showed you, and then I've got this little piece here to look like a little latch to keep the door shut, and of course this will all get painted better, but I'll show you how I do these little hinges and these little door handles just using little cardboard. Alright, so here is that front door that I'd made a while back. I've started painting this side, but to make the hinges, they're really simple the way I do them. I thought I was going to use real little hinges like for little dollhouse doors and things, but I just thought making my own would just save me money and time. So all I do for my hinges is I just cut a little square or a little rectangle, and I'm just going to glue that on here, and then of course cut another one. I'll make them match. So there are the two little pieces of cloth. This is just plain black cotton fabric, and I just use black because that's the color I want the hinges. And then I'll take a little piece of this poster board and just cut little strips of this. I want them to be the same that the squares are, as tall as whatever size I made the square, so when you lay it over, it'll just look like part of that square. So I'll just glue that to the door, and then of course put a little piece on this one. Alright, so I've got those glued on, and you're just going to basically do the same thing when you attach it to the door. You'll just glue this side to your door frame and then add another little piece of the poster board or little cardboard just to cap this side off. But what I also like to do is I like to go in here with my little stick pins, and I'm going to punch one through just to look like a nail, so that just kind of gives you a little rivet or a nail or whatever. So I'm going to do, of course, two of those on each side. And of course the back of this, you want to obviously clip that off, and I've got these little clippers, and this one side, if you can see, they're flat, so that really helps when you have this flat edge. See, this one dips in and this side's flat, so it really helps to get right up flat against that to cut that. And then of course I'll do them on this side, and then once you attach it to your door frame, you can even push the pins through that side too, and that'll really strengthen those up. And also When I paint this, I usually paint with the Mod Podge, and then that helps strengthen up that cloth. And then of course I'll paint it all black. Alright, so here I've got the door hung. I had to go off camera to do this. It was just such a complicated little awkward area to get into, so I just went ahead and just glued those little hinges on there, and I pushed those stick pins through it also, and I didn't have to cut those because they went all the way through the wall. So I like knowing that those are in there, because that'll help keep that fabric from pulling, and it'll just help hold it on to the frame well. And I've sat the door on these little pieces of these little strips of foam board. That's just to raise the door up a little bit so it ain't gonna scrape as it's opening. So I'm just gonna take those away, and then that way the door is up high enough to where it won't scrape when it opens. So all I gotta do now is work on some sort of a little handle, and I know there's some little iron pieces that go up here that I'll work on later on, but I'll just cut those out of the little poster board and attach those, and then the door handle, we'll work on that next. Alright, so for the door handle, I don't get too fancy with my door handles. I guess I could if I wanted, but I do them pretty simple. I just cut out a little piece of the poster board, or a little piece of cardboard would work. I think this is a piece of cardboard, and I just bend it into a shape. I'll just kind of bend it, and then you can just sort of see the shape that I create. It's just sort of this little shape, if that shows up. And the way I like to attach these is I glue these flat pieces onto the door, and then I also will push this little stick pin through here, which will really help hold that on better. So I'll just glue that to the door right where I want it, and then push that pin all the way through there. So I've got it glued on there, and I'm just going to push these little stick pins through it. And then you can take and wipe away some of that extra glue that's squished out. And there's that little door handle, and of course I'll have to put one on the other side, and then there's a little door knocker that will go on the outside also, and of course these need to be clipped off too. But the little door knocker, from what I can see in the movie, it's just a little rounded piece, kind of like this. Everything's so tiny, I'm just not sure if it's showing up, but I've got one of these little round screw-in hooks, and onto that I've just attached a loop. This is just a loop to a piece of jewelry, so I'm just going to screw that on to the outside so that that can hang down like the door knocker, and then I'll of course paint that black. It may be easier to paint that black before I put it into the door, so I may paint it and then attach it to the door. Alright, so here are those two little door handles, and I did go ahead and attach this little door knocker. I think it'll still be easy to paint that, even with it being on the door. So all I gotta do now is finish painting up the door, and then I'll paint these little pieces black. And I'll probably go over them with the Mod Podge just to strengthen them up. So when you're pulling on them, I ain't gonna pull on them too much, but just in case if people do pull on them, they'll have a little more strength to them. Alright, so this is another thing that I was going to mention. This is just a coat hanger that I've cut into 4 pieces to create these little curved parts, and I've just got them taped together right here, and then I've also put some super glue there just to hold them together better. and I added the baking soda to help harden that glue. And the wires bend and they go all the way up through this straw, just so that straw can stay on there really well. And it's just been, the straw's just been hot glued over that end of the wire. And then there's a little circle of cardboard to create that little space where the candle's supposed to look like it's sitting. And then I've just dripped the hot glue down to make it look like the wax melted. And of course I'll paint this black to look like iron, and paint the chain. And the glue that I've got dripping down, I don't really want it in this sharp of a point, so I'm just gonna cut those and make those a little shorter. But I don't want to just cut them straight across, so I'm just gonna cut all these at an angle if I think they're too long. So I've got all that cut. I think that looks a little more like it does how the candles melt in the movie. I just didn't want them too long because I don't think candle wax would have dripped and hung that long. So that was a pretty simple little chandelier, just making it out of a coat hanger. And I used a coat hanger because it's really the only kind of wire that's going to hold its shape as well as this does. Alright, so after showing this, I've also done a candle on the landing at the top of the steps here, just because I was trying to find a way to use the rest of those lights up from over here. In one of the earlier videos we did this little wall sconce, and I made the lights go inside the wall and down and around, and I've ended those under the steps so that there'll be a light in this little closet. And then I just thought it'd be kind of cool to just punch one of those up through the floor here and just put it in a candle, just to have something to look at. Yeah, I just wanted to show those little candles sitting there, and now I'll finish painting those, and pretty soon I'll be ready to start on this handrail for the staircase. Alright, so the one thing I didn't show about this was how I've got it hanging. I just took a little screw-in hook and screwed that down in between those 4 pieces of coat hanger and just super glued it in place so that it would leave me with that little loop to hook on to that chain. Here is that last window where I put that little black frame in there just to kind of finish that off. And then up above this window we have this one, and last week I actually moved it down because it was all the way up here and this top trim was going into these 2 pieces, and I just hated how that window was so high up and it was going into this corner up here. It just really didn't look right, and I'm sure people noticed that in earlier videos, and it was just driving me crazy every time I looked at this window that was way up here. So I just tore out that window, blocked it in, and then cut a new hole down here for a new window, and then just put new siding back on it. So this is looking way better, just in case if anybody other than me noticed that window being way too high. I just wanted to show that I've got that one fixed, and then I've got all the others trimmed out like this. Down here, last week this window was over here. You can sort of see where I've patched the siding. It don't really line up or match up too good, but I'm okay with that not matching up, because if you actually watch the movie, the siding down here is really patched, and like you can tell it's really old and probably been replaced through the years. So I don't care if it's perfect. I don't mind a few boards looking crooked or off, but I did get that window put over here, so when I put the water wheel where it goes, it's not going to be blocking this window or this window over here. You can totally see those better now. And also, you know, the side of the house has what they call daub. It's just like a mud, and every wall other than this one And I'm guessing the reason why this side is supposed to be like wooden boards is because this is where the side that has the water splashing up against it, so they probably had to use wood boards. Like if this is a real life thing, you'd have to use wood on this side, since this is where the water is getting splashed up a lot. So I guess that's the reason for having the wood boards on this side. And then down here, I'm not really going to show too much of this, but I have started these little stone details at the bottom, and I've got a little base coat of paint on those, but that's something we'll maybe work on next week or sometime later on. And to show those windows a little bit better, when the camera's down here looking straight at it, it does look like it still blocks those two windows, but really, as you can see there, it's not blocking that window. And then over on this side, it's the same, it's just not blocking the window anymore. And so I'm just glad that I pushed this one over some, because I just couldn't handle it covering those windows like it was earlier.